Hey guys, NartOut here. I've been studying pro matches to find the most effective CT setups for every site on every map in CS2, and today I'm breaking them all down for you. These are the setups used by the best teams in the world, designed to maximize crossfires, utility usage, and site holds. Whether you're playing with a stack or just want to improve your defense, this video will give you the setups you need to win more rounds. Let's get into it. First map is Mirage, and we'll go over some holds for middle. Team Spirit has this dual setup where Dong has an off angle to watch underpass, meanwhile Zontex is above him watching the top mid push out. Both players have an insane off angle to be able to capitalize on both areas. This is the perfect setup to call when the T's don't come out mid early on and then that they're going to come out mid round. G2 run a similar two-man setup with mobs holding underpass while Monacy is short with the op holding top mid. The next common mid setup and tactic is to fight for mid early to mid round, so you'll see the CTs molly underpass, molly top mid boxes, and then they'll push connector as well as short to peek mid and fight for it. When you're running this tactic, usually it's one player from A that's going to be flashing for your teammates to peek out. Let's move over to the A site where I'm going to show you this dual setup from Eternal Fire where one player is default and then the other player is sandwich. Yota is crouched behind default watching ramp, and the reason why this angle and position is so good is when T's entry out, when they look towards default, they're not going to see anybody until they fully swing out, and by that time, they're not going to be expecting a CT there. This is a crossfire setup where Yota from default is supposed to make contact ramp first, which then Zentaris is supposed to go unchecked, but you saw that Yota from his POV, he was flashed, so Zentaris makes the contact first and Yota peeks right after. This is a setup that's more suited if you think the T's are going to be executing A, so that's why you saw them in this setup early on, and then here's Wakadia playing mid. If you're desperate for a round, use this position playing firebox. Usually it goes unchecked, which then you can sneak out and get a couple frags. Duo ramp setup where the opper's watching bottom ramp, the riflers on the opposite side watching back and forth between palace and ramp. The third A player is towards jungle, watching towards window and connector. Unfortunately, Zorti misses a shot and they're just going to fall back. A lot of pro teams will run 4A at least once or twice a half. So here we have Astralis with Katie and jump spotting. Sometimes you'll see an opper be the solo player, like Zaiwu for Vitality will solo op B while 4 players are stacked on A. You hardly ever see B stacks on buy rounds, and that's because teams like to end A, and the percentages and stats show that, so that's when you gamble and call this type of setup. Here's a clip of Dexter soloing B with the op playing on top of a balcony watching apartments while 4 of his teammates are holding A. He is going to get the first frag, falls off, and the thing about the op is that it's so good that when you're repositioning, you can easily get another. One of the key success to having a good Mirage CT side is having your opper towards ticket. I'll explain here in a bit, but let's look at this setup from Eternal Fire, which is a very common setup where you have your rifler push into dark, your opper is towards ticket, and then you have one player towards jungle watching window/con. This is the strongest position with the op because you're utilizing the range of the weapon, as you could hold down A, you could hold mid. Sometimes you'll see opper start ticket in case of a fast hit, or they'll start window to peek mid, then they'll rotate over to ticket afterwards because T's will smoke you out window, which will make your op useless. There's not a lot of BCT setups because most of the time one player is anchoring B and then the other B player is towards short. Here's a mid to late setup that you could use from Na'Vi. LXB is towards balcony, JL is under van, and you could actually have this van player jump spot to take the attention away from the balcony player. This balcony position is super strong. It's usually a one and done position, so you can easily get at least one frag here. I want to thank today's sponsor, which is SkinsMonkey. They are one of the best and easy to use CS2 trading sites. You can instantly switch out your skins you don't want by selecting them, and then pick up the new skins you do want that are so much nicer. You could also buy skins much cheaper with a 35% total deposit bonus using code NART. Get a free $5 by using the link in the description and code NART. Now let's look at some BCT setups. The first one comes from Team Spirit where they're going to double peek tunnels and then play a double peek setup where Dong's on top of the rail, Zontex is playing in front of him. They're going to flush out anyone to the right with a Molotov. This is a conditioning play that Team Spirit do because some rounds they'll just throw that right Molotov and push tunnels. Another common top-bottom stack is the one in sight where one player is on top of the box and then the other player is close behind big box, and any T's peeking will be forced to peek into a double peek. And if you want to contest outside B, you can do this setup where 2 players are outside B with its top-bottom setup. Bait and switch B setup where Bit is towards the back of sight. He is going to be jump spotting window as well for outside B, so he would make contact first if they came out tunnels, and then JL, who's up close to the right, would not be checked because the T's attention and focus would be towards sight. The problem with this setup is for JL, if the T's go mid to B, he's out in the open. The T's can spot him from outside. This is a CT setup that you want to use when you think the Ts are going to be executing B from tunnels. All the attention goes into the backside player, leaving the player that is up close not being checked, which that player is able to capitalize as Matches does here. As long as you have one CT backside, the other B player can have flexibility and choose where they play. So Matches was earlier on top of the box, and then he's going to fall down to closet/car when the mid to B comes in, so he has protection. Another strong B setup and position is crouching behind the car because you're able to avoid flashes, while Donk is holding from here, Zontix is jump spotting from backside. Here's a round where Sensu is playing that Donk position where he is able to avoid those flashes that land inside that left wall cubby. It's the same CT setup as Team Spirit as we see Techno backside. Vitality are running the backside car position setup, and look how they managed to deal with this mid to B from Astralis. So Mezzi was at car, so he's going to position next to the wall now, and this is just a super tough angle that the Astralis players have to deal with as they are coming through the door. Robs picks up tunnels, and this is why it's crucial for Ts to have a mid to B flash when they're entering into site. Let's move over to the A site where the strongest setup involves someone towards Goose throwing the God flash, and then you have another player towards ramp. This is a really good setup to shut down the short take because of that flash. The Ts will not be able to react to it because they can't see it, and here we have Vitality running the same setup. Onto Inferno, where first off I'm going to show you an apartment setup where the Opper is going to be holding the stairs. Meanwhile, your rifler is going to hold an off angle for window. Your third player will be watching mid, sometimes the third player will be in boiler. Torzy gets an easy frag, Jimmy follows up with another one. Now, if Torzy didn't make contact first and the T came out window, that T is most likely going to be looking towards boiler, so Jamie would have gotten an easy frag there. Here's Navi running that setup, and we can see that Emma, who was playing boiler as that third player, gets the trade frag here. If you want to fight for mid, use this setup. Two players are up close mid, and then one player is on top of porch, and then the other one is towards long jiggle peeking. I don't show it here, but the solo player towards B is going to be given smokes from his teammates at the beginning of the round, so that player can continuously chain off banana, forcing the Ts to go mid into the stack. The strongest CT setup on A site Inferno is having one player towards pit, one player towards site, so you have an insane crossfire for the Ts coming out apps or up short. In the pro scene into the mid to late round, this is the most standard common setup that you'll see the CTs play in. This is not a CT setup you typically do early into the round because you don't want to just give up mid for free, have the Ts push you back, or have them use their utility. This CT setup is so good because you'll see that 90% of pro teams will end up with a setup crossfire like this, and it's super hard for the Ts, you can see from Kerrigan, to go ahead and try to clear out site and towards pit. Here's a good round to show off that crossfire. Yuri in pit, Skulls is hiding behind the pillar where that pillar is going to give him cover to not get flash, and then Yuri is just holding this off angle to spot anyone going up into sight from short. So one player will always be playing site, but the pit player has multiple positions that they can play. So one position is top balcony, and another good position besides the balcony and pit is playing behind the truck to set up that crossfire. The strongest B CT Inferno setup having one player towards CT jiggle peeking, throwing the banana smoke, and the other player towards coffin flashing, and then both players coming through to peek banana. The reason why this tactic works out is because of the utility being thrown. So Nico throwing the banana or B smoke here prevents the three players in the back not being able to see anything, as Mobs on the other hand from coffin or back coffin is going to be throwing a flash that lands in front of coffin, so those B players that are entering are going to get flashed, whether that's the two players coming in first or the three players being locked out from the smoke. This strategy works really well against executes. The downside is if the Ts pop or they contact in, which then you'll be caught out with your nades. Here's a round from the Mongols versus Vitality where the Mongols ran the same tactic and they're able to shut down the B hit from Vitality. You could also run the same setup on pistol round as Mouse smoke off banana, and Brolin has a flash for pit. His teammates are going to push through the smokes from Pain Gaming and they're going to shut down this B hit. Let's go over Nuke. Let's start out outside where Vinny throws a glaive smoke, pushes through his own smoke while his teammates going to set up to throw these flashes that will blind any Ts close outside. Vinny capitalizes on the flashes and gets 2 frags. Another variation of this dual setup for outside, this aggro push, except using a different flash as well as a different peek. So we've got the outside flash for Vinny who crosses T-Red to peek to the left of it. A very common solo play you can make on the CT side for outside is throwing the glaive smoke, pushing behind the cover of the smoke to watch towards silo, and then you could also hear if any Ts cross towards T-Red, which Zaiwu does here and ends up with a nice 3k. One common CT setup for outside from the pros is having one player inside garage watching towards mini and then having another player towards heaven or somewhere outside to watch across the secret. One of the most classic tactics on CT side Nuke is the lobby crunch. FaZe is going to run it here where Kerrigan Molotov's back door, Rain pushes hut, Molotov flushes out that T, Rain even commits and goes aggressive up ladder, gets another frag. Meanwhile, two players are pushing trophy and they're going to pinch onto lobby, and then while this is happening, FaZe dedicate one player for outside. The most common aggressive duo setup towards ramp in the pro scene is having your Opera Molotov off that corner for trophy, peeking behind the cover of the Molotov. Once the Molotov ends, the rifler Yuri here is going to clear out this vending machine room, doesn't see anybody, and then Fallen's allows to push up, watches the entrance of the lobby, which then Yuri can go ahead and push into lobby. And while this is happening, Fallen is still watching the entrance. The strongest ramp position on CT side Nuke is playing on top of boost. Typically, as the ramp player, you're going to be by yourself 80% of the time. Now, if you do have a clear read that the T's might be coming ramp, have another player here, and this player is going to take attention away from the boost, which is going to lead to you for a multi-frag. The strongest upper position is playing on top of silo. This allows you to safely spot any T's inside hut, holding a very tight angle. You can hold the angle with the rifle, but most players will hold it with a Molotov out, and once contact is made or an execute comes in, they're going to Molotov off hut, then drop off. There are two important things you need to know when playing this position. First off, somebody needs to be watching your mini and door. Mini is the more important area because with door, nobody actually has to watch it as long as you keep smoking it off. Once you run out of smokes, you'll have to drop down. This is of course if door is blown up, which in the pro scene 90% of the rounds it is, but if you're playing Premier or Face It, then you might be able to stay up here still. You saw into the earlier round that Senzu was playing Tetris and he was able to watch door in mini, and he can also do so from top hut, and we see Techno having to force out the Molotov once he made that contact hut. The next setup involves two players. After smoking door, you're going to go ahead and lurk into the smoke on each side and you're going to fade out the smoke. On Ancient A, there's two common CT setups that you'll see pro teams running. The first one is the double A main push. Once you have control of A main, if the teams aren't rushing early on, you can go ahead and leave two players here. You could leave one player here and have the other player run back, or you could also do this setup here where we see Monty is just going to dry peek it here. He doesn't see anybody, so him and Hunter will keep pushing, but unfortunately contact is made here and then they're going to fall back. You can also solo push A main with the best spawn as Fame does here. He almost catches out Kerrigan, so he's going to fall back. He calls for the boost, which allows him to silently get up here towards the boost, and this allows him to see any shadows inside main, giving him this upper advantage. Playing boost is such a strong position because you're always granted one frag. The other common ACT setup you'll see pro teams are running is this double donut setup, and then here's Navi playing the double A donut CT setup. Bit was watching A main early on, but he gives it up and nobody's watching A main. Just be careful running this setup because in the pro scene, T's hardly lurk out A main. And then the best two oppositions on Ancient CT side is from inside donut. You can spot the shadows for the T's coming out mid, and then from inside of the temple doorway, you can spot the T's shadow from A main. Mid can be hard to take as only two CTs, so a lot of pro teams are running this setup where they have three players taking mid control. That third player is usually going to be the A anchor coming out to help. You'll see this setup more commonly in your higher elo as well as competitive league match games. The main thing when running this tactic is having those flashes from window, as we see LexB do here and then Wonderful from the previous clip. These flashes are super effective because they're going to land to the left behind your teammates pushing out window that are pushing up mid, and any T's that are coming out of elbow are going to get super blind. Another strategy that pros abuse on the CT side of Ancient is run boosting one player up heaven fast so they can go ahead and peek down and rush down towards heaven to help take lane control. This strategy involves two instant smokes, which is the B door smoke as well as the elbow smoke. Bit will be the one getting run boosted. You usually don't want to call this setup when the T's are coming out fast mid, but Bit was not flash at all from the T's. Before peeking down lane, he's going to get a flash, however he does accidentally look into it. The flash is important because of any T's pushing up or watching towards heaven. Alexa B is the one pushing down ramp. Before he does so, he gives his nade and flash to JL. He puts out his own ramp Molotov, backstabs the T that's attention was focused on heaven. JL will throw lane nades, which is a Molotov, nade, flash, and then another nade, and then he's going to wallbang this area, punishing any T's that do decide to push up. Let's move over to the B site. The first setup I'm going to show is the top bottom stack towards cave, where one player gets boosted and then the other player is playing under the boost. So T's peeking will peek into 2 players. This setup does involve 3 players because your third player should be watching ramp for you. There's hardly any dual setups that you can run towards B site because usually one player is towards cave and then the other one is anchoring B if you're doing a standard 2-1-2 or 2-2-1. The switch up comes when you bring over that third player. So that third B player allows you to do dual setups, as we saw with the top bottom stack. Here we see a double cheetah setup with JL and Alexa B, as Wonderful is anchoring B with the op watching ramp, and he's also keeping an eye on window if the donut player does not have vision or gets smoked out. 3B is a common CT setup in the pro scene because not having mid control is fine as CTs as long as you have info on mid, whether that be from the donut player or one of your B players spotting window from back lanes. Here's another 3B setup. 2 players are peeking cave, so the T peeking would be peeking into a double peek. The other player, JKS here, is going to be making contact ramp, and then all 3 players are going to be fighting ramp and trading. Teams also play 3B because the B site is super small and T's can easily take that with a couple of nades. So if you want to contest that, then you're going to want to play 3B. Also playing the numbers, I saw on HLTV that pro teams are favoring to go B 60% of the time versus 40% towards A. Let's look at the map overview on how mouse setup: 2 towards A towards donut, 3 towards B, and we have 1 player inside donut exertion here, Jiggle peeking for contact mid, but he's going to get smoked out, so this is going to force Spinks, who's on the back lanes, to now keep an eye on window. Here's an aggressive CT setup towards B from FaZe Clan that you and your teammate can run, so they're going to instantly smoke off B door. Kerrigan and Rain are going to Molotov these 2 areas bottom ramp, and they're going to double nade off of that left wall and push down. This tactic involves the instant B door smoke, which I will link down below in the description, which you see Rain throwing. Kerrigan, the first player, is going to Molotov off the right side. He's going to throw a nade off the wall, put out the T's Molotov if there is one, then pushes down. His Molotov and nade does massive damage and gets the frag into Flit, and he punishes the other player for pushing through that B door smoke. Rain's going to Molotov bottom ramp. He should have had an HE nade here, which he would have thrown off that left wall as well, and he's going to follow Kerrigan to push down ramp. While this is happening, FaZe has 2 players towards mid, one of them going towards heaven. One of the best aggressive train CT setups that a lot of pro teams are using is having 2 players push up Pop Dog, waiting at the stairs area here, while the 1 player that is towards B is waiting ramp, and they have the ultimate crossfire. These are very hard angles for T's to clear because it's so tight around this position and there's not a lot of space to work with. Here's a B duo setup. You need to use 1 upper player watching ramp and then the other player is oil watching upper. Nico has a nasty off angle to watch upper, and you can see the protocol come through. If there is an upper lurk smoke, that is going to prevent Nico from watching it, so he's going to back up here, and he was going to watch towards ramp. However, he's getting Molotov out, goes to oil, and then he's going to get 2 frags here. Doesn't have to be a rifler to watch upper. A lot of times you'll see in the pro scene that an upper is actually holding upper. As the upper player, you're holding this insane off angle to watch ramp, but if the upper lurk smoke comes through, you could play around the smoke as Magus does here, netting him 2 frags. Playing that upper Magus position allows your teammate to flash you in upper, or you could also push upper for info mid-round. FaZe Clan's dual setup inside ramp. We've got Frozen on that right wall with a rifle. Meanwhile, Brokey has an op. Brokey makes contact first, however gets flashed off the angle. Frozen is going to be peeking and he's going to get 1. Brokey gets 2, and it's a good 1 for 3 exchange. Let me show you 2 good positions to hold B. First off, at the beginning of the round, you will be jiggle peeking ramp like this. Look how Yota is positioned all the way near the blue train and not up close to the wall, because the T's, if they do try to pre-peek you and pre-clear you and pre-aim, they will hardly spot your legs. Once contact is made, you can throw your smoke and Molotov, then fall back. Now, if you're anchoring B and you're by yourself, the best position to do so is from Cloud, which is this upper area for the CTs. This is the safest position to do so, and as an anchor, you want to stay alive. Wait for your teammates to rotate in. It's not the end of the world if you lose B on train, because you can easily retake it as long as you don't allow the T's to advance. As long as the T's don't get past oil or connector, you're going to be able to retake 80% of the time. This will leave the T's not many angles and positions to hold on B. Now over towards A, Fear run this dual setup inside main, where 1 player is watching T-Con and then the other player is watching an off angle for Pop. They have 1 player towards camera watching Ivy and then 2 players towards B. The issue playing this setup is if the T's Molotov you out and you don't have a smoke, then you're going to have to fall back, and any T's inside Pop Dog can catch you out, but here in this round, the CTs have a smoke. One of the strongest op angles and positions to hold on train is sandwich behind the red train. You can spot the T's shadow when they enter into main. After this first shot, you can go ahead and help out Pop Dog by switching over to the left side. Here's a dual mid CT setup from FaZe Clan, which involves the Rifler and Opper. So Kerrigan is going to push up towards the right of the wall, holds this off angle while Brokey's holding his right side. Dexter is going to walk into Kerrigan, not expecting this off angle. Let me show you FaZe Clan's aggressive CT setup towards A, which involves 3 players. Brokey is watching the tight angle for water. Kerrigan is going to be pushing up, and while this is happening, Leash will have flashes from a broken wall. Kerrigan is going to be Molotoving behind the box and flashing. Unfortunately, his Molotov does not go far enough. You can see that there is a T behind that box, which he does win the duel. As he's falling back, he hears another T try to chase down the frag, which he is going to be able to win this duel. Brokey is jumping on top of the box, holding the tight angle here, and he is able to pick up a frag as well. Now, if Kerrigan's Molotov went far enough and nobody came out of that position, then that is going to set up Kerrigan to push out into water with these flashes from Elish. There's also another setup that you could do towards A main with the same 2 players, except you wouldn't go aggressive. The Opera would still be holding that tight angle that Brokey would be doing, except Kerrigan is going to be holding up close to the left wall. You can do this as a dual setup, as 3 Max is going to have Exercise push out and peek into water from A main, Molotoving off that right box. Meanwhile, Maka is Molotoving off rugs, and then he's going to back up into the broken wall where he's going to flash Exercise out, and the timing of these nades is going to force out the T that is behind the box. T's will always beat the CTs here, so it's always important that you throw some type of nade. If you want to play a more passive towards A, you could have 2 players on A jiggle peeking at both entrances, so 1 at A main and 1 at towards camera. Navi run a similar 2-player setup. We've got JL jiggle peeking mid from camera, and he's going to make contact, throws a Molotov. He gets blind, so he starts shooting, gets 1 with the Molotov. Bit is going to smoke off A main when that mid contact is going to come through, so he's going to reposition towards Fountain, so he's able to help out. That's the biggest point when you're playing A. When the split is coming through, you need to isolate one area. So in a different round, we have Bit throwing the A main smoke again, where he doesn't have to worry about the T's coming that way, where he can help out towards camera. You can see what happens if Bit didn't have a smoke for A main. The 2 players from Fear would have taken him out. Let's move over to the B site, where I'm going to show you a very common CT setup, which involves 3B. So the Opper is holding water while 1 Rifler is going to push up this close wall. Maka gets the first frag. Rifler here is going to peek, and he doesn't see anybody, and they fall back. The 3rd player that was with him was watching B main. You could run the same double connector setup, but the B main player this time can be towards Pizza, where they're going to flash out connector, so your Canals player can go ahead and swing out. The most common B CT setup in the pro scene is 3 players towards B, 1 player is going to flash 2 of his teammates out B main. Safe gets dropped 2 extra flashes, so in total he throws 4 flashes, which is going to blind all of the Furia players. The problem with Anubis CT side is that you can't always sit back and wait for the T's to come to you. This map is way too T-sided, as they can easily take map control, so CTs will have to be proactive some rounds. Here are more B setups you can use. Navi uses this double peek setup towards Pizza, 1 player on top, 1 player under. So any T's peeking B main will be peeking into 2 CTs, while the 3rd player is watching connector. Now here's an EF double connector setup, 1 player watching Canals with the off angle, 1 player watching B main. That wraps up the best CT setups for every site in CS2. Hopefully this gives you and your team some solid game plans to shut down attacks, whether you're holding strong positions, using utility effectively, or making aggressive plays. If you found this video helpful, be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more CS2 breakdowns. Let me know in the comments which setup is your favorite, or if you've seen any cool ones from pro matches. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.